Hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast. 20 years ago, I walked into the changing rooms at my gym and I found a woman there, not much older than me, and she was crying. After a few minutes, I asked her what was the matter, and she simply said, "It is my son, my only son." I later learned that her son was a drug addict and that he had dropped out of school, and that he was stealing everything he could around the house so that he could access the drugs. She told me that whenever she tried to speak to him, he would actually beat her. Now, I don't know what happened to that woman and her child, but over the years, I have met so many parents who've experienced the same problem. I've actually seen fathers crying, breaking down at places of work because they just did not know what to do with their child who was on drugs. Even in our own families, we've all experienced it firsthand. Now, my guest today is somebody who went through the same problem, except for her and her family, it did not end well. Please help me welcome Sarah to the program. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
And I know that there are many people also in our society who are trying to do everything possible to see how they can assist parents like Sarah to address problems of drug addiction among young people. And one of these people is Roosevelt, who's joining us also today, and he'll be discussing with us his own journey in terms of abuse, substance abuse, and what we can do in our families and whom we can see to try and address this problem. Welcome, Roosevelt.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Now let me start with you, Sarah. First of all, tell me, how are you doing?
I think I am doing better this year. After the loss of my boy, it's not been easy. Yeah, so generally I'm better.
You're okay?
Yeah.
You feel that you are doing well now?
I can walk around without shame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is it shame or at least crying or feeling bad?
It still feels like shame because you
Okay.
feel you messed up somewhere as a parent. You feel you lost some dignity somewhere because you have not done what you thought was right for your children, and so it does feel like shame.
Let me take you back. Let's go back. Tell me about yourself. Where were you born? Do you have siblings?
Yes, my name is Sarah. I was born Sarah Mwababa, and about 30 years ago, I got married to a man called Tim Jones. I went to school in Lusaka Girls, and then secondary school I did at Kablonga Girls and Kasisi Girls as well.
What kind of family did you grow up in? Were you happy? Were you a close family?
We were close as siblings, but we're not close to our parents. Yeah, that is something that I can confidently say. So as siblings, we're very, very close.
Did you have boys among your siblings?
No, we didn't.
It was a girl's
just
family.
a girl's home. Yes, and I'm second born. My older sister is Lillian, and then there's the other 6 girls. And in my home, we had very strict background. My dad was not an easy person to handle. And so we grew up very afraid of reaching out to him as a parent. But he did everything that he could as a parent. In those days, I think it was easier for parents to feel as long as they take you to school, they clothe you and they house you, prepare you for your life after school. They thought that was, yeah.
Do you remember growing up and hearing maybe stories about somebody in the family maybe who was an alcohol addict, drugs? Did you remember hearing about abuse of substance when you were growing up?
I actually remember one of my cousins was really a serious abuser, and he would. We reached a stage where, when he comes home, would lock ourselves up, or just make sure the servants turned him away when he came home because
and this was alcohol abuse.
This was alcohol and abuse because he used to actually. I think he chewed the marijuana, not smoked it, because I think he had reached a stage where he was not he was feeling that that was not enough. And then also, I think he took more substance than just those two. Yeah, and I remember that we didn't want him around.
He was scary.
Yes, he was.
So you had first-hand experience
Yes,
growing up.
yes.
Tell me, what kind of family did you think you'd have yourself coming from that background? What was your dream? What did you think?
I was so sure mine was going to be perfect because I was growing up in a home where things looked perfect. You know, we were obedient children. Well, I was a bit of a rebel, but I think we're just this almost perfect family, and I thought that's what my family would be like as well. I was so sure.
Okay.
I was so sure. Yeah.
When did you say you got married?
I got married in 1995.
And how many children were you thinking you would have?
Honestly, I thought I was just going to have the one because, childbirth was not so easy. But then later, I ended up with 4.
4 children?
Yes, I had 3 boys, and my firstborn's a girl. And so
So the firstborn was a girl, the second?
And the second is a boy. That's the one that's gone.
And
then the 2 are both boys.
Boys.
Yeah, so I had 3 boys.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the second-born. What was his name?
He was
His name?
Jones Jr., Jones Tim. We also gave him my dad's name as a middle name, so he was Jones Clement Jr. Yeah.
And when he was born, what were your dreams for him?
Oh, so much. He was my first son. He was like this cutest little thing, and he had. He was just a beautiful boy, and he was a little naughty. He's a boy, and yeah, he fought a lot with his older sister. But at some point, they started looking like twins, so I was like raising twins in the house, and
With a sister?
I was so sure that this boy was going to just make. He was just going to be a little hero, because he was always he was the most. There are people that fear to even speak out. He wasn't like that. He was the most forthright person I knew, and this was one person that even in his growing up, he would sit me down if he wanted something, and unlike the others, there would be that fear. This is a parent, his mom, but he didn't have that.
Tell me, do you remember the first day you took him to school?
Oh yes, I do. He wore his little uniform. He was just about 3, and he was really excited, so was I. And I think his main joy was he was following his sister, and he wanted to be in the same place where his sister was. But one thing that I noticed was that he didn't want to let go of me. He was not clingy. I think he just wanted his mommy around.
The first day.
Yes.
Let me ask, when did you think it's going wrong? Something is going wrong. At what point do you actually remember thinking it's not going the way I wanted it to go?
Going back as far back as when he was like 10, 11, he developed a temper. It was really, really bad. And I thought it was just, growing up, and probably because he had these other 2, younger boys, maybe it was, I thought it was sibling rivalry or something. And then as he grew older, around 13, he would have these little outbursts. He was very outgoing, and I used to feel that he was more different because he really had a temper, and then started growing. And he was the most pleasant, and then when this temper came, he would just be like, come on, they want to talk to me. I just want to throw myself on the bed, and I don't want to see anybody. And at first I thought that maybe it's just teenage.
Did you ask for help from the family or the church or anywhere?
No, I didn't, because I thought at that time I could handle it. It's just ourselves. We can do this. I'm a parent. I'm learning him. He's learning me. And yeah, sometimes I would, would just sit with the dad and discuss it and say, I don't know why he's got such a temper. And we just, talked, just between the two of us.
And then when did it start getting from bad to worse?
In 2013, his dad said he wanted to go to the farm, and he went, and he's been there since. So he didn't really tell us how long it's going to be. And I think that in the first few months, we felt that he was going to come back. And then he didn't. So I think Jay was the most affected. Somehow sometimes he would ask me questions like,
where's Dad? Why isn't he?
No, where's your husband?
Where's your husband? Why is he not living with us?
Like sometimes at first I thought he it was really light or something we could handle. And then it started getting worse. The questions got more, and the others would not ask as he would. And then one time I asked if he could take them in, because I'd been with them for 3 years and I'd never known how to pay rent. I didn't know how to do all these things because I'd been taking care of us all these years. And then now I'm, trying to build this family as Sarah and her children. And then one time I asked him, could you take these guys in? I'm being evicted from the house. Is it all right? And he said, I'm not so sure that I can have them right now. So I think he heard our conversation, and then he kind of didn't want to go. He just told me, Mom, if he doesn't want us there, why should we go? And I told him, I have nowhere to keep you guys.
And that's when you saw his
when I
character.
saw,
his character
yes.
really
And
became...
then he really didn't want to go, but then I had to beg and tell them, okay, just give me time. When you guys have been away for some time, I will try to, I'll try to bring you back as quickly as I can.
But when did you then, from then on, begin to suspect that he was taking something?
So one Sunday afternoon, we go to church and he went to the media department, and that day he was even helping. And then when church happens, we're done, he just tells me, Mom, I'll be coming. And he put his phone on my phone and he left. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'll probably find him home because he's never done this before. And this is 2014. And I'm like, where has this boy gone to? The whole afternoon, evening.
How old was he at that time?
He had just turned 2014. He was born in 96. What is that? How old is that?
About 14, 15.
About there somewhere. So he just didn't come home. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? This is 19 hours. I got out of the house. I walked around. I didn't know which direction to go because I was, I just didn't know where he could go. And then I realized his phone is home. And he, 1 o'clock in the morning, I was still pacing up and down. I didn't know who to call. And then finally, I think I drifted off into sleep, and I don't know. It's at that time that I think that he came in and he knocked at his brother's window and they let him in. So about 3 o'clock, I walk around again, and then I go into his room. And then I see, somebody rolled in a ball. And I'm thinking, this is not normal. How does somebody sleep like this? And then I uncovered him. He had dyed his hair white, and he was just this different person. And then, I could only tell that he was breathing because there was a little thing there that was showing that, yeah. I wasn't smelling anything, but he was just dead. Tried to wake him up until about maybe 7. That's when we managed to get him up. And then I asked my daughter, I said, what could have happened? She says, I don't know. And I think she was afraid to say, I think he's taken something. And then that was the first time. After that, he would just, he didn't say sorry to me. And I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I was shaken. And then finally, I saw a post on Facebook. He says, that feeling when mom doesn't scold and she just looks at you. And there was, that emoji. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was the first of our roller coasters. Mm-hmm. That went from one incident to another, and he would just disappear, leave the phone. One thing that he never did was get anything from the home to use, to buy, whatever it was that he was abusing. And to this day, I don't know if I'm a bad parent, but I never did get to find out what it was that he was taking.
You never took him to any counseling?
I did ask my pastors. I asked them to just have a chat with him because he wasn't getting through to me at all. So I asked one of our male pastors, I asked, could you please just talk with him? And they said, no, he's such a good boy, he's sorry. I'm like, it's not the sorry part. I want to know what he's doing so that he should stop. Yes, what is it? And then they tell me it's because of your situation at home. And I started feeling that they were right. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to make them feel as comfortable as as I would at home, but I wasn't sufficing because I think he wanted his dad. And I was not able to do so.
But you never thought about seeking medical attention?
I did.
You did not know where to go?
I did, except like you say, I didn't know where to go. So the one time that I remembered that my cousin used to run a facility in Mazaboka. It was called Katombora. Mm-hmm. Before they moved it to Livingstone, I think. Mm-hmm. So I tried to look for his number. I couldn't find it. It had been like 20 years last time I'd spoken to him. So I kept checking. I asked myself, who can I ask? Should I call them directly? And every time I called that number, I wouldn't get through. So a friend of mine had recently got a job in Livingstone, and I asked him, do you know where? I've been told that this place has moved to Livingstone. So he says, oh no, it's near Kazungola, whatever. So I said, okay, just give me a number. So I did call these people. And to this day, I feel bad that they told me what they told me, because I feel that they should have just maybe given me a little hope.
What did they tell you?
They asked me, at that time he had become 21. Mm-hmm. And I asked if I could,
get him there.
Yes, and they told me I was too old.
He was an adult. He was 21.
An adult.
He had to make his own decisions.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that
was it. But while this was happening, did you know any of your friends or family members, colleagues who were also going through the same problem with their child?
Yes, I did, but I don't know if it is African society or whatever it is. We don't want to share. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even want people to know what was going on in my house. Mm-hmm. So I didn't.
Not even your siblings?
No. Mm-hmm. I didn't. Just thought that maybe we could handle it as a family.
Now, the day of the catastrophe, what do you remember about it? You woke up in the morning, and then what happened?
Okay, so 2 days prior, he had sat with me. We had no electricity. There was a time that we had these power issues, and then we had no electricity. So I was cooking from outside. I was seated by the veranda. So he comes to me and says, "Mom, I want you to meet my girlfriend." I'm like, you even have a girlfriend? You can't even take care of yourself. You disappear from home. We don't know where you've gone, and how you're going to keep mwana wabene. I use those words. Oh, they haunt me a little sometimes because I think maybe I was a little too hard. So I told him, when do you want her to come? Then he tells me, I want you to meet her on Friday. I said, okay.
And what day was this?
This was a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, actually it was a Thursday. I said, I want you to meet her tomorrow. I said, okay, you can bring her. Then I had a church meeting. I'm not just a mother, I'm also a pastor. Mm-hmm. So I had a church meeting, and I left home to go and just attend to something, and I didn't know where he was, but he called me. Like, "Mom, are you leaving? Are you not supposed to?" So in my mind, I'm thinking he's seeing me. So he must be in one of these shops. like near home. And then I said, I'll be coming back. And he says, okay. Then he writes, he texted and said, okay. And he asked, we would ask for little monies like tukwacha. But I'd be like, for what? He said, for airtime. He had just finished his course at that time. So I'd ask for this two kwachas and I'd be like, but why would you ask for a two kwacha? No, because I want to buy talk time. Okay. So sometimes to just cut off whatever, because we knew he was feeding his habit. So, and one of the reasons why I didn't want to tell my family about this was because they would always tell me, they are not very polite. And you want to protect them because everybody has this. So even when he's around his peers, I would know that there's certain things they say about him because of his color. So I wanted so much
he was
to.
Mixed race.
He was mixed race, yeah. So even when I was like, where could he be seated? I can't see him because it was very easy to spot him. And then I came back in the evening and he came and then he says, Mom, I want to go and get some airtime. I was like, I don't have airtime in my phone. I would have sent some to you. He says, I want to get. I'm like, if you go for good, and then he says, I know, Mom. And he knew that many times he had gone out like that, and then we had been, So this particular night, he says, okay, I'll be back shortly. And true to his word, he came back and he says, you see, Mom, I came. It was like an achievement for him. And even I was surprised. Everyone in the house was like,
everybody was
happy. And we slept. And then Saturday morning, I had another meeting to attend to. This one would take me away from home. We were in Lai Farms. It was very far from where I was coming from. So I knew that if I go today, I'd only be coming back the following day in the evening, which was something that my children knew. So something just kept telling me, call them at about 19 hours, after the meeting was done. Call them and find out how these guys are doing. Did he come home today? It's like, is your brother home? He came. And he didn't see anybody. He just walked into the house, went into the bedroom, changed, and left. I was like, oh my God. So Nisha, when are we going to see him again? And something was eating.
And you're worried that you're not going to see him for a while.
Yes. And following morning, at about 1 o'clock, I was leading in prayers. We had intercession in the night, and I was leading that night. So I'm just feeling something wrong. And I could tell it was not something that was outside, it was within me. So I kept praying away, and I kept leading, and little did I know that was the time, one of the worst news. Really, I'm not so sure what the worst part is, whether him being away for a few days, you not knowing where he is, or him completely not being.
So you were praying at 1 a.m.?
Yes.
And then what happened next?
I tried to sleep and I can't. I tried to sleep and in the morning, it's 6 o'clock, I haven't slept a wink. And then it was my grandson's birthday. So I just posted on Facebook and said, happy birthday, little guy. It just went. And then a call comes in from my daughter. And she's saying, Mom. I'm like, what's wrong? And she says, it's Jay. And the first thought I had was, I think, he's in one of those states, and they brought him. Yes. And I thought they brought him because he's in that state. And I'm like, just shake him. He's not wake up. And she says, she cuts the line, and then I decide to call one of the caretakers. And then he says, Madam, I'm like, no, just put the phone on his ear. He will listen to Mommy. When I talk to him, he's going to respond. I really thought it was just one of those. And then he tells me, Madam, I said, no, that's my boy. He will listen to me, put the phone on his ear. And the man didn't know what to do with me. I was in Avondale. I wanted to fly there. I just wanted to go and wake him up because I just didn't know that this could take him, Other people's children recover, there's rehab, there's prayers. What prayer did I pray? And finally, when I got there.
Well, what time did you get back?
At about 9. At about 9.
And you found him at home still?
They hadn't come to pick him up, when, so they said he had committed suicide and that he was probably had died maybe around 2 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yeah, so I said that's why he didn't come home. That's the reason why he didn't come home. Then my daughter tells me, Mom, maybe he's found some peace. I asked her, I said, what do you mean? He says he so badly wanted to please you.
Let me just take a moment and talk to Roosevelt here. You've heard this story
Yes.
about this young boy.
Yes.
Was that you at some point?
I started experimenting with drugs when I was 16 years. I first tried out marijuana. The friends that I used to hang around with were regular users, so I wanted to fit into that group. So at some point I asked to smoke. Then the more we started doing it, it now became a way of coping with stress, a way of coping with different other issues.
Had you seen anybody from your own family smoke marijuana, abuse alcohol, or any other substance? Why was it so easy to fall to peer pressure for you?
Okay, so growing up, in the home where I was growing up, my father used to drink alcohol. Yeah, he used to drink alcohol excessively. Then he had his brothers. His brother used to use drugs. They used to smoke cigarettes. So I think that behavior was kind of normalized in me when I was growing up. So I feel it was even easy for me to jump onto drugs when I was 16 years, though it was out of curiosity that I started. But the more we started doing it, at some point I ended up going into dependency, where when I wake up in the morning, it's my body that will push me towards to smoke. If I haven't smoked, I would be experiencing all sorts of withdrawals.
Where were you getting the money to pay for these drugs?
So at first, we would ask maybe for money just to use at school, just to buy a few things like lunch. But after we started using regularly, we started stealing at some point.
You started stealing from your family?
Yes. I would steal groceries from home, go and trade them with these guys who sell drugs. Sometimes I would sell my clothes, sometimes I would sell my shoes, just different stuff. Yes.
And then what did your family do? Were they concerned? What was happening in the home?
Though I was quite secretive about that behavior, but though they noticed that there is something that's happening. And what usually happens is when somebody is using substances, because there is that addiction is characterized by denial, where for you can't see how you're negatively affecting other people around you. So for me, I felt I was okay with what I was doing, but I feel people would talk about it. And at some point, I became careless with even storage of these substances, because they would find them in my room, they would confiscate them. Yeah, but obviously at some point they were scared of confronting me. But I remember one day I stumbled across these substances that I had lost. They were in my mom's bedroom, and again,
you went there to search for them?
Yes. Again, came across them, went to smoke again. So it was something that, as I was growing up, I felt it was a phase, and I would grow out of. But what happened now was I ended up switching an addiction. From the marijuana, I started now resorting to drinking alcohol. So the alcohol now also took a very destructive path, where I lost focus on school. Yes, and generally even in life, I started losing hope. I would find myself in different destructive situations. I think one of the worst was being involved in an accident. We were drunk and we were coming from a nightclub. Then the car that we were in was actually hit by a truck. And I was seated in the back. I collapsed at that moment. I only came to wake up in the hospital. Then I was strapped to a bed. Then 8 ribs were broken on the left. They started asking me, are you aware of what happened? But I couldn't remember anything.
Did you finish school with that behavior? Did you finish school?
I completed school quite alright, but my results were very low. Yes, and I understood because what we'd do is we'd go into the bush to smoke weed, then we'd pretend to be studying. But while you are high, you'll be reading one sentence for 2 hours without understanding anything. Yeah.
Do you remember any conversations you had with your mother? She said, Sarah here, that she tried very hard to have conversations with her son. Did you have conversations with your parents about what was going on?
I didn't really open up to her that I was struggling with drugs or these other substances. But though, from the outlook, she used to think it's just one of those phases that somebody is going through as they are growing up.
Teenage phases and
Yes.
you get out of it.
Yes, but it was also characterized by just that rebelliousness, where I would want to walk out of the house. Maybe I would go around 18, I would come back the following day in the morning, and sometimes she wouldn't even open for me. Yes, I would stay there, she would say, no, you just go back from where you've come from. But obviously, even just out of love, she would obviously again open for me there. And I would sometimes apologize and say I wouldn't do this thing again.
Were you ever violent?
Not really violent, but I was that person who never wanted to be criticized or told something negative about what was happening.
So you had a temper as well?
Yes, so usually I would walk off and I would go and find myself with these suppliers and with these other people using drugs.
Tell me about these suppliers. Was it easy for you at 16 to find them? Was it very easy?
So what had happened was when Dad passed away, we had to relocate from a residential area. We had to shift to a more like a compound arrangement.
Yeah, to the compound.
Yes. So when we went into that area, I think I was also struggling with acceptance. To say we also well to do, but life is changing, and that's when I found myself now being involved with these people who are
and in the compound it was easily accessible.
It was easily accessible.
Marijuana
Yes.
and the alcohol.
Yes, it was easily accessible, and for them knowing that I would take clothes, I would take shoes, so they welcomed me just as they are accustomed.
What about at school? Did the teachers say anything?
At school, I used to hang around with a very wrong company of friends who were usually labeled as the dagger smokers. Because when we go to school, we'll be planning of jumping the fence. Yeah, we're quite very unruly. And it's something that even the teachers never liked us because of just that behavior. Yeah.
Let me get back to you, Sarah. Since then, how has the journey been for you since the loss of your child from committed suicide, using a drug overdose? What has the journey been like for you? You look back and say, what could you have done right?
With what I've learned, at least in the recent months, I probably should have chose to seek help from more people, even people around me. I hid too much, and I think it caused us to get way isolated. I also feel that I didn't speak enough. I many times was afraid to speak to him, so I spoke very little in fear of maybe his hostility.
Making the situation
yes,
worse.
So I spoke very little, but I feel that I should have spoken more. I should have made, deliberate effort to not just be me. I didn't even want to involve the dad at some point because I was thinking, does he care? And I should have been spoken to his dad as well.
You did say you're also a pastor.
Yes,
did you feel
I
that you did not have enough skills beyond just being a parent, but also being a pastor to address the problem and share with others?
I think it is from that angle that I hid more, because as
to be so shameful.
yes, clergy,
pastor's child.
pastor's child, she sits and she's helping other people's children, but she's failing to help her own child, and so I that was even the worst part. That was really the worst part, the fact that I didn't want to reach out to other pastors because I felt they were saying, well, everyone, they didn't tell me that, but you
That's
just
what you
feel
felt.
judged, yes.
Let me ask you, Sarah, do you feel responsible that your son committed suicide?
Without so much of pretending, I do feel responsible. I feel I could have done a lot more. Yeah, I know a lot of people tell me don't blame yourself. Yes, I try, but it still does make me feel that I could have done.
And what conversations are you having with the other children now, in your children?
We all kind of suffered together because we were going through this together, and now we have we've deliberately made the point that we discuss as many things as possible. And one thing that I've noticed is that the one that was just Josiah, the one who's the immediate brother to
The one who followed him immediately?
yes, he does not want to have anything to do with alcohol. He says or any drugs. So he wants to help the young brother to know that this leads you here. And I think he's traumatized that this could have happened to his brother. And he doesn't want the same thing to happen to his young brother. So I found that we've become closer, of course, and we speak more about everything: women, divorce, drugs, anything that, we talk anything now. We've become.
Have you had any help now from your pastor colleagues,
Yes.
from family,
Yes.
even from the father of your children?
Now we have a better relationship. We do have a better relationship. I think it hit us both, and we feel we could have done better as parents for the boy, and I think we didn't know how much we had ripped his heart. Yeah, so we are in a better relationship. We're not together, but we're still we're in a better, much better
now.
relationship. Yes.
Roosevelt, what was the worst for you? At what point did you say, if I don't stop this, I might die?
Okay, I think the worst experience I had was I hit rock bottom. I think hitting rock bottom was getting to the lowest point of my life. I think that was a time when my health actually deteriorated. I had lost hope in anything, and I slowly started going into depression. Because I remember one day I was sick, I wasn't feeling well. But I went to the ghetto in these trenches where I bought this ghetto whiskey. Instead of going to buy medicine, I went and bought that ghetto whiskey. Then when I drank, something clicked in my mind. I felt better. But then it said, how come? I was supposed to...
What is ghetto whiskey? Explain to us. What is ghetto whiskey? You said you went in the trenches and you bought ghetto whiskey.
Yes, they brew it, they call it catastrophe. The one that they brew it using maize. I don't know that fractional distillation process that they do.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I bought that, when I drank some, I felt better. So it clicked in my mind that how come I was supposed to go to the hospital and get medicine, but I come here and buy this alcohol. Now, for how long is this going to go on? I think then it clicked that I think this what I have is beyond me, and it's something that I have to really think, because if I continue, I'm not going to be alive maybe in 2 or 3 months from now. And it's at that point when certain thoughts have started coming, because I started seeing life as worthless. I started thinking, maybe I should just throw myself on the road or in a river.
You wanted to commit suicide also?
Yes, I started thinking maybe what would be the quickest way or the less painful way for me to just go, because I usually used to blame it on family. I usually wanted to find somebody to blame for my situation. And it's at that point, I think that's when family came around. I remember when mom came to find out where I was staying, she found I was sleeping on the floor, and it's at that point that she also broke down. She was like, how come? I send you money for upkeep, but to see you in this lowest point. And at that point, she started blaming herself, saying maybe it's me who's failed as a parent, that's having died down. And at that point, I think that she thought that, no, I think this is actually beyond him. Maybe sometimes he tries, but he always finds he finds his way back to this. That's when she consulted somebody. Then they told her that no, there is actually a rehab center, because that was back in Kitwe. So they said no, there's a rehab center in Osaka. Maybe we can take him there so that we can get some help.
So where did you go to the rehab center? Which one?
So we went to Great North Road Rehab Center. Yes, and at that point, I started contemplating, because certain thoughts had started coming. That no, I think if I don't stop this, I'm actually going to die. So obviously, there was a bit of anxiety. I didn't know what to expect. But when I got to the center, it's something that I found other people were struggling
with as well.
Yes. And
so you voluntarily went to the center yourself?
Yes. Though at first, my brother, yes, my brother had once suggested that, bro, maybe you need rehab, and I really got offended. I was like, how come? He's even younger than me, he's telling me I need rehab, because I would usually compare myself to people who are worse. Like, no, me, I think I'm even better. Yeah, but at that point, when I started having those thoughts of just even committing suicide, I thought, no, I think this is beyond me.
I need rehab. Yeah. How long did the process take, the rehabilitation?
So I was admitted for a period of 6 months. But when I checked in, I think it's something that I really needed, was to be away from drugs, to be away from alcohol.
To be in a controlled environment, controlled environment.
Yes, and that's what actually made the process easier. Because I was like, I think one of the challenges I had was I had access to these substances. Because sometimes something bad would happen, and I would say, no, it's because of the alcohol. But after a few days, I would go back to the bars, I would go back to the trenches, and then the cycle would begin again. And then I had that pattern where whenever I have money, then it's going to end in tears. Actually, something bad would actually happen. Then it's that thing where I became a risk to myself. And I started thinking, now what is this pattern that's coming to me? Whenever I have some money, I get excited. And actually something really bad happens before that money finishes. It's either I would have been attacked, I would have blacked out somewhere. Yes. So when I went into rehab, I started learning now that what I had was a disease. Because for me, I had overruled that fact. I was like, I think if I had understood that what I had was a disease, I'd have actually put in the necessary precautions for me to fight it. So it's when I started learning about triggers, how I started, what has made me continue using, and what provokes me into going to use. So I learned about the company of friends that I used to keep. I think it contributed a lot. Even the environment, at some time that I stayed in, it was also a contributing factor. So I looked at all those areas, and sometimes when I look at the length that I stayed in addiction, that was about 20 years. Yeah. So I thought when I look at the pictures of my friends who are doing well on Facebook, I'd actually get...
Even worse.
Yes. Get frustrated.
Is it possible to actually get over addiction?
Yes, it is. And I think I'm one person who actually got motivated. When I went into rehab, I promised myself, I looked at the 20 years that the addiction had taken, and I said, if it's taken away 20 years of my life, I think let me try to push even just 5 years without using these substances. If nothing changes, I might as well continue. But after just staying in recovery for a year, things started changing. I found that opportunities started opening up, my health got in better shape, the relationships improved, and I was like, I wish I had made this decision a long time ago.
So it's been how long since the last time you abused?
So it's been 4 years now.
4 years, well done, well done. I see you've written a book to try and help other people, The Invisible Observer. What is really at the heart of this book, of The Invisible Observer? What is really at the heart? What did you want to communicate? Okay, so I wrote this book to share about my experiences with addiction, because I know a lot of people are vulnerable out here, because you find that no one starts drinking alcohol with an intention of becoming an alcoholic. Or taking marijuana with the intention of becoming an addict. But there's a progression that happens. So I wrote about my struggles with addiction, and I've shared different experiences of people who went through depression, and I've also just gone into depth to explain. Let me ask this question. Some people might be watching the two of you and saying, maybe these are two isolated incidences. Is this such a problem in this country? It is actually a big problem, because even in society, you find that there are people we can
consider as functional addicts. I think they are all over. You find in different professions. Yeah, and for others, they don't understand that what they have is a
What about in
disease.
school? You started in school. Is it such a big problem in our schools?
Right.
Even in schools, especially for the young ones, because we say one of the risk factors for developing an addiction is age of first use. If somebody tries out marijuana or alcohol,
13, 14.
yes, then it's most likely that it's going to develop into an addiction.
Is it just marijuana, or are there other drugs that are being abused by the children in Zambia?
So there are a lot of drugs on the market now. There is heroin, there is blue mash, there is codeine. So all these drugs are easily accessible now. There's even cocaine, though it's a bit expensive, but one of the cheapest and the most addictive is heroin.
Here in Zambia?
Yes. And now, because some time back, maybe here in Lusaka, we only used to hear of Chivoli. But now you find that it's in all marketplaces. Yeah, people now, on every street corner, they have these drugs. Yes. So it's,
What kind of message would you have for a young person who's planning their future 20 years from today, and they're looking at you who had an addiction for 20 years? What kind of message do you have for them? What kind of willpower do they need to get over this?
okay, so for people who've already been exposed, I think they should just open up. The earlier they open up, the better it is. Yeah, you know, it's easy to develop an addiction, but it's very difficult to get out of one. So maybe before it progresses to a level whereby it will be very hard to get back, it's better somebody opens up. Then for those who have not experimented, I would say prevention is better than cure. Yeah, they should just focus.
If I can just ask you a last question. Your family was able to get you to this rehab, and I'm sure they paid something for 6 months. What happens to families that can't afford to pay for rehab for 6 months? Because that's quite a long time.
Yes, so because I usually like to say addiction is a family disease, because when one person is struggling, the whole family is affected, because no one would like to see their loved one affected. And when one person heals, even the family heals. I think there are actually some options that are there, especially at the center, because now I'm working at the rehab center. I'm helping out people who are struggling with different addictions. So when they come through, there are different packages that can be offered. If they can't manage to admit them in-house, they can even opt for an outpatient option, where they can just be coming for sessions to get to that realization.
Sarah, what would you say to a mother going through exactly what you went through?
It's a journey that is not easy, obviously. But in the first few years, like the first few months, it's been 3 years since I lost my boy. But in the first few weeks, I felt there was no help I could give to anybody. So I started feeling useless, actually. I started feeling that if I reach out to anybody, they're going to say, but you failed your own. But with time, after learning from people like him, and actually even learning that there are rehab centers all over the place, which I didn't know about. Can you imagine? I'm only learning them now. The journey for me has been hard, but I'm learning that I can help another parent. Yes, I can help another parent to observe these things that I was observing. And they may not be the ones to help their child, but there is somebody that can help them, like the centers he has spoken about. And then we also have the church. I've discovered that many churches are now open to helping these parents that are going through these things with their, with their children. So recently, I sent about 4 or 5 families to my own senior pastor that have had children that have been dealing with these issues, and it's been very, very helpful. So for me, I'm seeing that in all this, it has turned out well for me. There is hope for somebody.
Thank you. Thank you so much to both of you for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Well, those were our stories for today. Sarah, who lost her 23-year-old child from drug addiction, and Roosevelt, who's managing it day by day but has been sober for 4 years. The problem is real, I've also learned. So We just have to try in our families to be a bit more kind to each other and to notice the problem quickly so that we can get help, because there is help out there. As I say always, let's just try every day to be kind to one another. Thank you for joining me today.